model view controller. Okay, so then let's start, and I'll maybe start a little bit with the presentation we had in our previous course, but I mean the key points will be quite useful also in our course. In our current course, so this will be more to remember for you. And so let's then remember what is the database. Yeah, so first of all, so this is the presentation we had last time, but we can take a look on some key points here. So first of all, what are the databases? Yeah, so this is the key question. And as I said you several times, that the databases are needed to simply to store the data, right? And so I mean each application. So we usually say like every time to close this, and it's usual. Okay, let's first move on. Okay. So yeah, we need to store data, and usually we say every time we start developing any application, any website or something similar, we need to we always need to start with the connection to the database, with the database itself, and so where to place the data, and with the connection to the data, connect our solution to the database, because we always need to store our data somewhere. So that's why we always need to think about it. And actually, without having the database, we don't really have any option to work to store the data to work with the data, to basically work with the application, because I mean can you imagine any application which does not use any data? Maybe some application I can imagine, for example, calculator or something like this. But I mean, the most applications, you just take your phone and take a look on the applications you have there. So all the applications use some kind of data there. Yeah, and in fact, we can say that the database is something really, maybe not real, but something quite technical, and maybe not really clear, but so I mean, the database is not like just something really special. It's just the place and the way how you store and manage the data. On the other hand, we can also, let's say, use our local file storage to work with the database, to work with the data. So we can simply say that, let's say we have some kind of files where we store data. So in theory, we can also say that maybe your CSV or Excel file, whatever it is, it can also be used as some kind of database. Yeah, so in theory, it's also possible. Yeah, to use to create. I mean, at the end of the day, all the databases, if it's SQL database, or I'm not really sure about Mongo database, I never use this, but at the end of the day, everything is based on the file. So for example, let's have a look on the example. Yeah, so by the way, basically, why do we need such tools like example or MySQL Workbench? Yeah, basically example is mostly needed for web programming. It's PHP framework, which we maybe don't need in this way, but I like it because for me it's the easiest way to set up, because usually with MySQL I have some MySQL workbench, I have some crazy background processes which make some problems to my computer. That's why I prefer using XAMPP. It is usually, at least for me, it's easiest tool to install and to use. Yeah, so that's why I use it. But again, you can use any other tool. So we go to administration panel. So let me open this. So yeah, again, what happens when you run XAMPP? We actually do the hosting on our computer. Yeah, so it means that basically we have hosts. So what are the hosting? The hosting is we simply say that the hosting is the place where we usually store the websites or web applications. And so this is the place this is basically the server. The server, which is in this case, since it's a local server, I'm not sure if anyone in theory can access it anyway. Never tried this, and it's not really specialist in such connections. But so the same way such a server can be created. On the public share, so everyone can access. For example, there are many different web servers. Like maybe the most popular now is Amazon Workspace. It is also OVH. I used once, and there are lots of different web hostings. They are different. They are also meant for different kinds of applications. Yeah, but so they are. And in case you want to develop your own web application or website, then you actually need to buy, because they are usually usually you need to pay. Yeah, not usually, but always you need to pay to have such global server, web server. But so in this case, it's basically what happens then when you have the hosting. So for the hosting, there's also, in this case, it's not really needed for us, but there's also the tool which, so this is PHP. It means that this is actually written on PHP. So and the PHP is this is programming language. This is programming language. I would say it's something. I'm not sure. I can say it's something between JavaScript and other languages, because I would say PHP is quite. It's a little bit specific language, but it's also really. I'll say it's also really nice, and it has lots of same concepts, but on the other same concepts as, for example, C# has, or similar languages, but it has some tricky. I would say not tricky, but advanced options we can use. Once I created my last year, I created my website on PHP, and so I actually enjoy working with PHP. It's for me, it's like very nice language, and also has some usually people say quite old web frameworks, but they are, for me, I think they are really nice. But okay, anyway, we have the web hosting, and in this case we have this PHP admin. So this is the page which is also running running on this PHP framework, and basically this, in this case, everything here is stored on my computer, so this is localhost. And it's, so localhost is not only PHP MyAdmin, it's about any, you simply can build any website on your localhost. Again, maybe in that case, it would be not enough to use XAMPP, you may need some other tools maybe, but you still have localhost. It means that it will, the website itself will be stored on your computer. And yeah, so this is, and yeah, so just for those who are interested, we can go to the folder, and you see that, let me open it. Hold on. So. Yeah. So here it is. Example in my case, it is C disk. Okay. So it's loading. And yeah. So here we have examp, and actually you see here we have folder PHP MyAdmin, which has all the necessary things for this particular page. And we also have this SQL. Oh no, that's not this one. Moment. Quickly check what was that. Oh yeah, here it is, MySQL. So under example MySQL, we have, yeah, it's the data, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and here we have the data the database we created last time, and you simply see that it is also stored as the file. So at the end of the day, everything is stored inside the files. Just the only question is, do we have a specific program or tool or similar which where we can manage our data in our files, the data in our files. Yeah, and for this purposes, we have, in this case, we have MySQL. We have different databases, which which at the end of the day, this helps us to work with the data. Yeah, so, in fact, database is the tool, which helps us store and simply managing the data. Yeah. But in theory, you can also create your own type of database. Yeah, you can create your own database on the server. You can, as I just said, develop your own database. Like, so you can store data in Excel files, CSV files, also in XML, JSON files. So that will also be the option for you to manage the data. But I mean, on practice, for obvious reasons, it is usually easier and better to work with SQL or similar databases. Why? And such tools. Why? Because it's just there are lots of different frameworks written for these tools. Like, for example, here again, we have this MySQL connector in C#. Yeah, so, and we already have all the necessary classes, like here, all the necessary classes, which can help us to work with the data. Yeah, so to access in the way we want to create the queries. So everything is already in place. So we don't need to invent any new things there. Okay. On the other hand, if you have your own, let's say, way of data storage, then you need to create all these methods, all these classes yourself, and of course this takes more time and it was possible to share the code, share your database with others. Because again, so usually when we program, we don't think about ourselves. We think about those who will work with our program in future. Yeah, because again, you can write the code works, that will be fine for you and for everyone. But so also I mentioned that after you, someone will take care of the code, and it may be like if the code is not written in a proper way, it may be complicated for others to work with it. Yeah, so the same is with such databases. It's like if we have something which is commonly shared in between all the, not all the, but lots of developers and frameworks, then of course it's much more easier to work. Yeah. That's why we have such database, and that's why we use like in this case here we talk about MySQL, but there are also other databases, so maybe not talk about them. Yeah, so we have, yeah, basically this is database management system. Yeah, also the term which can be used here. Yeah, so yeah, so maybe I was not really precise. Sorry when I said that MySQL is so this was database. No, it's the database management system. Yeah, that would be more precise. But I hope you understand. And that because this is the database, and this wall is database management system. Yeah, for the place where we can manage our database. Yeah, we can have multiple databases. Yeah, so and there are some popular database management systems: Oracle, Postgre, MySQL, SQL Server, Mongo, and lots of different things. But at least, I mean, it also depends. Because some work with Oracle, but Oracle is yeah, actually some work with Oracle. That's also fine. But I usually work with MySQL. There are also some specific database types which can be a little bit modified from MySQL or similar, but at the end of the day, it's they all are same. The concepts are similar. Of course, everything is based on the tables. Yeah, I mean, we have the database itself, yeah, which basically stores the tables. Yeah, the database tables. For the tables, they have the rows and columns. Yeah, one more thing also about the storage of the database tables. They mostly we have row-based storage, and sometimes there's also column-based storage. So maybe this is quite technical. I will not go in details here, but it may affect the performance. Yeah, but okay, maybe not about technical. On the database, we have the primary key. Primary key means it can be one field. It can also be the chain of fields. So it means that this would be the key which should be unique and cannot be cannot have duplicates with this particular key. Yeah, again, it can be one field. There can be multiple fields in one key, but key stays the same. So what does it mean? It means that if you define 3 fields under the primary key, it means that the chain of them should be unique. So like we simply can say that if we concatenate 3 fields, the concatenation of these 3 fields should be unique. That's like in this case, let's say if we have employee field unique, then this particular ID should be unique. If we have employee and name as the primary key, then it means that let's say, yeah, we can, yeah, roughly, very roughly, we can say that the concatenation of these 2 fields should be unique. Yeah, but yeah, we can say the combination, more precisely, the combination of these fields should be unique. So yeah, what does it give to the tables? So first of all, we don't have duplicates on these fields, and secondly, it makes it easier to apply some operations. I'll say mostly reading operations, because again, at first, every time we talk about the database, it means that we use them in our solutions, and if if yeah, and if we use them, the key point for us is that we use them in the way that it does not hurt the performance significantly, because every time we work with the application, the key thing we always think about is the performance. So it means that because again, I guess you as the users of some different applications, you can again imagine if you open the application and it's frozen, or it is loading for a long time, or yeah, maybe it's heating or doing some crazy things. Of course, we as the developers, we want to prevent such cases, and yeah, that's why we need to make the read. Yeah, usually it is the read on the database is more efficient. Yeah? So, and also primary key is also the key point to make it faster. Yeah? Because we can apply the sorting, then we can build some different technical structures like tree set, so like binary trees. We can implement such structures, and then work with the types. Also, we can have the foreign keys. So what do the foreign key means? It means that maybe let's say in parallel. Let's have a small example. So let's say that let's say this one. Let's say we have the countries. So we have the countries. Do we have any entries there? Yeah. Yes, we have. We have, and let's say I create the table of maybe let's say cities. Yeah. So let's say we have the table which is needed to store the cities. So again, I'll use the ID as the key field. And so just again, why can't we use for example the name as the key field? Because we may have so just yeah, so in short, we can have the cases when the names of the cities are not unique. Like we may have some cities with the same name. Like I guess we have London in United Kingdom, and we also have London in I think we have in Canada, if I'm not mistaken. I think we have London in Canada. Let's no, let me go check. Yeah, I think we have. Yeah, in Ontario. Yeah, so then this means that we cannot use name as the key since it won't be unique. Yeah, that's why we still need to have some kind of IDs. They can be automatically incremented, which means that they are automatically, what does it mean if we select the field as automatically incremented? It means that the field should be set as the primary key, and So that means that if it's a primary key, it should be unique. And automatically incremented means that we can, if we insert a new record in the table, it means that we can skip providing the ID, and if we skip, it will automatically assigned, and the value will be the previous ID, the ID of the previous field inserted, incremented by 1. Yeah. So that's why we can set it as AI, automatically incremented. Yeah, so ID cannot be known. Then we have the country, the city and the country. So for the city, I will provide the city name, and I will set it as, maybe let's set it as text. In this case, not so important, but yeah. So there is also such option to select it as null. So what does it mean? It means that so when we enter the field, so not the field, when we enter the row in the table, we can skip entering this particular field. So it means it can stay null. Yeah? So we can skip entering this field. That's why it stays null. Yeah, like, and remember that empty string is not null. Empty string is empty string. Yeah, so null means basically no value. Yeah? It's not empty value, it's no value at all. Yeah? And for the country, you see here I use integer. Why? Because again, this is what I just. Of course, table name. These would be the cities. There we go. And yeah. So you see that I entered country as the integer. Why? Because I will not use the text. I will use the ID of this table. Why? Because it is, yeah, first of all, it makes sense if I change the name of the country. So in theory, such cases are also possible. In practice, that the name of the country is changed. Then like, imagine if I have the text, the country stored everywhere as the text. It means that if I change in one place, I also need to manually change it in all the other places. Right? This is not efficient from the developing point of view. Yeah, like you need to change all the possible places. That's why we can proceed in the easier way and more efficient again. And in addition, yeah, remember that you also store the data. Yeah, it means that you also occupy the memory, and it takes some memory if you write more text. So we better don't use the text is everywhere. Yeah. So if we have the option not to use the text, then maybe let's use this option. So, and then I can I can set it as I can set the foreign key. One moment. So for the foreign key, I don't think I need to select. Let's try. Okay, so it's generated in the index. Okay. Can I use advanced now? Okay, that was not from advanced option. Sorry, then I can delete this index. Yeah, we'll maybe talk about indexes also, but later. So one moment for the relation view. So also for relations. Oh yeah, okay. So I go to relation view. Then then I can find a foreign key. So that would be the country key, the country foreign key, and so here we can add the restriction, and then I say which column needs to be restricted. So I say that the country column needs to be restricted, and then we can select the database, and let's say I restricted by country ID. Yeah, so then it means that I add the foreign key for this table, and now it will look up to countries table and select the, not select, but it will the IDs from here, and the country ID, it should map the ID from the countries table. Yeah, so they will be linked this way. So this is the first thing. Second thing is so this is about the way of data storage. Do you have any questions about the data storage? About the structure of data storage? Are there any questions? Okay, so then I hope it's clear how the data is stored. So, and then the second thing is how do we actually work with data? So first of all, basically everything what we do here is based on the SQL queries. So SQL, it is it is so moment. So I forgot the abbreviation of SQL. So that's moment. I usually forget it. Yeah. So SQL. This is the language, and the abbreviation is structure. Yes, query language. Yeah. Just accidentally forgot it. A structured query language, so it means that it is based on the queries, and in this case, it's not the usual language what we write in the backend for our applications. It is it is it is the language which is based on the procedures. So it means that we simply say, and usually what we need to say, please do this, please do that. It's not really structured. Okay. So it's not really structured in the way as we normally do in C#. So it's just simply that we say, please do this thing, please do that thing, update this, update that, and I think it is possible. I didn't work on SQL queries in such advanced way that, like, again, we can do some. I guess that was the question from Mario or Alan. I don't remember about what can we actually write in SQL. Okay, that's Mario. That we can do some calculations on the SQL side, and I mean, some basic calculations we have though. So let's say we want to calculate the field. So let's say we can, let's say instead of Latvia Riga, I want to select the concatenation of Latvia and Riga. So I think I can then select so just to not confuse you, let me yeah, there is the function concatenation, which yeah. So moment. Okay, so we can use the statement concatenate. So let's say I concat offline. Moment. So this is the older version. It shouldn't be more in a moment. And quickly check why I don't have concatenation option. I think it should be concat. Oh no, I think I can. Let's say maybe I'll concatenate capital and maybe currency as one thought. From country, is it possible? So in this case, it does not show me as a keyword. Okay. Yeah. So okay, yeah, this works fine. This works fine. So you see that using concatenation, it can select the concatenate from here. Yeah. So in this case, we can do some concatenation. So we can also we can do some operations. So there's concatenations. We can also do some simple math like sum or maybe even multiply. Such small operations are considered fine. What I maybe don't suggest to do is like doing some really heavy operations. So like maybe some complicated operations what you cannot really write in usually in one line. You know? Okay, the question from Alina. I also wonder whatever information about users or subscriber is stored in the database. Yes, it is normally stored in database. For instance, first that comes in mind is iHerb, so you have to tell all the information about yes and no. So yeah, it's yes and no. Yeah. So the information goes to the database. On the other hand, it can be the access to the databases is limited. So in this case, I mean, here we also have the privileges, and I can restrict the access to the database. So usually, yeah. So if yeah, so that's a good question. If you are worried about your data, so at first, yeah, first of all, not everyone has the privileges to access databases. So the access is strictly limited. Yeah, and usually how it works, usually how the development usually works. We have multiple systems. We may have some kind of development system, testing system, and the real production system. So in all the different systems, like they have different databases. Like again, we have development system. So this is the system where the developers do the development. Yeah, create some kind of code, do some changes, and so on and so on. Then we have usually another system, which is the testing system. We call it migration system, demo system, or something similar. And this yeah, so this system, this also has maybe different access rights. And at the end, like when everything is tested in the testing system, then all the changes go to production. And on production, usually there's a strict access to the to the table. Yeah, so for example, even here I can limit the access. Yeah, for some reasons I don't have the privileges to administrate the privileges here, but yeah, so yes, on your computer you can do it. And the thing is that you can restrict the access to the database. So this is the first point. Not everyone has the access to the database. Yeah, this is the first. Secondly, there is for the payments data. This is the good. For example, we have payment data. Oh, this is yeah, for the payment data. It is a good question. I think it's definitely stored somewhere in the database, but what can also happen for the database tables? You may have some kind of for example, also one example we have, just one small example we have now. We have the situation in our project that we work with China customers, and in China there is currently a new law that all the data of Chinese customers, they should be stored in China. So we basically then now have to create the separate database, separate server to be stored in China. Yeah, so we need to simply separate all the data of Chinese customers from the main customers and move them to store them in China. So such restrictions can also be there in place, and so what can also be in place is the anonymization of the data. So this is also an important point. What does it mean? It means that maybe the names, the names may be stored in one table, and on the other table you simply have the IDs. Yeah, so it means that when you look on the table with tables with IDs, you don't have the names of the customers. Yeah, so maybe such things like the names can be stored and can be separated from the main data. Yeah, and those who look on the main data do not really know who all these people are. This is the first point. Then I guess the point which may be really you may be worried about is the passwords. For the passwords, it's much more easier because the passwords, in the way as you write them on websites, they are not stored in the text format in the database. So it means that if you have the password like 12345, it will not be stored in the database as 12345. It will be stored. So yeah, how the passwords are stored? The passwords are stored in the tricky way. I think. Let me maybe check. I have one example here. Let me quickly check. So just to be sure, yeah, I guess I can pretty much be sure. So yeah, this is the database of my website, but I'm not sure. Okay, it's here. So, and I have the table with users, and I think there should be the passwords as well. So yeah, we have the table with the user was. I guess this one is the right table. Let me open it. And you see the password. The password is the passwords are usually stored this way. So basically, the passwords are hashed. Yeah, so the passwords are hashed. It means that and they are usually hashed one way. Yeah. So what does the hashing mean? It means that when you type the password, there is special complicated not complicated. Technically can be complicated calculation function, mathematical function triggered in the backend, and it simply hashes your value. So let's say you provide the value 1, 2, 3, 4. It takes this value and calculates such hash value. It calculates such value. And then, so when you enter a new password, this value is stored, this value is saved and stored in the database. So in the database, there's no such password like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is the password this way stored. And next time when you try to enter the password, then it, again, what does it do? It simply calls the same function as before, and if that function generates this particular password, then the password is correct. The password provided by you is correct. If this value does not match the value you provided, the value calculated by the function, then the password is not correct. And this hashing is pretty advanced. So there is no possibility that you will have the case when you enter two different passwords and they both match this hash function, because I guess probability is, I mean, in theory it's not zero, I think, but it's really small. So you don't need to worry about the password. They have questions. So yeah, and the question about the hash function, usually there are many different tools which you can take. I guess also in C#, I guess I've never used, but hash function. So I guess we can also check in C#. There are some. So these functions are related to cryptography. Yeah, so you can find some libraries related to cryptography, and then they will compute you hashes. So you see also in C# we can find some, yeah, so you see system security cryptography. You can check this library and you'll find some different functions you can use for hashing your passwords, for example, or something similar. So, and yeah, usually there are lots of different libraries for these hash functions, and yeah, so also if you're interested in cryptography, you can check out some special algorithms, some special procedures, what can be done to generate such hash functions. And again, one thing what I want to point out is that these hash functions are, and I guess all the hash functions, if I'm not mistaken, are one way. So it means that you can find the key based on the password, but you can based on the text password, but you cannot find the text password based on the key. So there is no function which normally, there is no function which can take this hash value, password hash value, and retrieve you the real text password. So it's not possible. These functions are only created one way. There are different hash functions. They have different protocols. So if you're interested, you can take a look on some cryptography sources. I have not really worked with cryptography on my practice. I usually just took some function. Yeah, in case I had to do it, I just usually took some functions for generating passwords, and they were all fine, and I simply used them. Yeah, but yeah, usually we can find lots of different cryptography libraries which can help you generating. And remember, all these functions are normally one way. Yeah, also nice. One more question. For instance, every user can access the history of orders. Yeah, okay. That means that for each customer in your database. No. Usually there is one database for all the customers. Yeah. So again, for example, this is the database I had from my website. Yeah, it's not a huge website, but there is one database, and so I also have a quick look on the orders here. Some kind of order templates. Yeah, my shop order base, order products. So all these orders are created here. Yeah, so there can be the email of the customer, or some special linkages between the order, the editor, or maybe something similar, which can be the linkage between the order and the customer. Yeah, so basically there is usually one database, which is stored for where the orders for all the customers are stored. Yeah, and then you can basically then you can write the program which fetches this data. So there's different logic. And usually, basically, also one more thing, so I see you're interested in this. When you log in, you also have the authorization. Like you have the user when you log in, so the system sees who you are, who are you, and then based on your user, it can see some. It can take some linkages. I'm not sure where did I have these linkages here, but so there can be the data about the customer, it's about the email who made the order, and I think I guess the editor or customer ID. And so here I have customer ID. Then I can navigate to the customer ID. So okay, I think so. Then okay, this is the foreign key. I'm not sure why I can't navigate there, but I can. So I mean, I can navigate to the customer table of customers. So it's somewhere here, or just the users, and then based on this particular field, then I can get the customer. So there are the linkages, and the logic. I mean, so how it usually does, it sees your username, the username entered your login user, and based on this login user, it fetches the orders for your customer. So this is the way. And the cards, so the cards are usually created. I mean, it can be done in two ways. So usually it can be like when you enter the website, then there may be some files created. Some maybe local files which store, for example, your card. So let's say you enter the website. If this is the web store, you want to order something, then you add the items to your basket, and then usually these items are stored so that they can be stored in the database as one option. So every time you change something in the database, not in the database, you add something to your basket or change something there, then the corresponding database entries are updated. So it can be stored somewhere in the database, and then it can be fetched from there. As an alternative, there can also be, like, let's say if we talk about the session-based, so then there can be the file, local file, and then such data can also be stored there. But it depends on the technical solution, so it can be different, and it depends. But so anything you add to your card, it's also stored somewhere. It can be the database, it can also be the local file. So access question from Maria: is there the same access to password from the code? Passwords. The access. There is the access from the code. This is correct. The code access your password. The code has the ability to access your password. This is true, but I mean the codes are not created in the way that anyone can. So I mean, of course you can have the code can access your password, but I mean no one can read it. I mean, of course, it's in fact there is the possibility that someone will write the program which sends your password to someone, but nowadays we have lots of different security restrictions, security checks, security audits that such things that the code sends your password to somewhere. I mean, in normal cases, it's not possible. all the programs usually, yeah, I mean, on practice, when you as the developer, when you write some kind of code, it will usually be checked by some. It definitely be checked by someone. So nowadays, for the programs, it's quite rare, and I think almost not possible that anyone writes the code just from the beginning till the end and no one checks it. So normally in the not normally, but I mean almost everywhere, or maybe not almost, but everywhere, you have some kind of checks, and usually your code will be revisited by someone. So yeah, and also there may be some different security checks done. So it's checked, and I mean the code can access it. Yeah, the code can access it, can check, but I mean it's not a big deal. Yeah, that the program sees your password. So the program is just the computer, the machine which executes your code. Yeah, which executes the code and sees your password. Of course, it will be accessed by code, but otherwise it won't be possible. Like so, it's not possible. Like in theory, you imagine the password and it in some mysterious way it gets hashed into the hash key. Yeah, of course it's not. Of course it's not possible. When you type anything in browser, like I type something here, yeah, like I type something here, it's already written by browser. So there is the JavaScript code here. Yeah, if I go to inspect element, so I go to some kind of sources. So there is JavaScript code somewhere here. So already when you type anything, even if you just simply type anything, it will already be accessible by JavaScript code. Yeah, and JavaScript code can maybe also do something. So such checks like yeah, add symbols and password, it can already be done on JavaScript level. And JavaScript level means that when you type anything or you do any actions you do in on the web page, these all actions can be handled by JavaScript code. Yeah, so for example, you type even one symbol, JavaScript can see that you typed it and can already make some checks. Yeah, so the answer is simple. Yes, the code will definitely access your password, and normally, I mean, if the code is not written in the way that it sends the data to anyone, it is not possible it's not possible that your password will be shared with anyone. Yeah, and also there is no actual possibility that anyone can trace what the code does. Of course, you can put the breakpoint somewhere in your code. Yeah, like if you have such function, and then you can trigger and debug the code triggered by your actions. Yeah, it's possible, but also for the debugging, if you want to trigger the debugging of other users, then of course there are the restrictions on such cases, and so it's not really possible. Also nowadays on the web applications, and also with the web applications I normally work with, there is the single sign-on. Single sign-on, it means that also, for example, when you for example, on my additional work computer, there is, I mean, this computer is delivered from I guess from, yeah, basically the thing is that I need to access the network of the company I'm working with, and so I cannot access it from my local computer. Basically, what do they do is that they send us the computers. They send us the computers with the setup network, and I mean, I don't have any passwords. I can access any system on this computer. So all the passwords are already using something. Yeah, but for VPN there also are the restrictions, because normally the computers work with the server. So it means that there's the server somewhere stored somewhere, and like the access to the server may be not really easy. Yeah, so there may be some VPN, maybe not really be not always is the option, and it means it also like not every company can give you the access to VPN, right? Because due to some security reasons. So they actually, in our case, they sent us the computer and they don't give us any password. So basically everything is, I guess we can call it single signed on the computer, and then we can access the applications there. Yeah, so VPNs, yeah, VPNs is also the option, but usually, I mean, based on my experience, no one gives the access to VPN. So there are two options. One option is that, yeah, I mean, in some cases also VPN is fine, but not 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 all the time. Yeah, sometimes there may be some security reasons. And yes, one option is to send the computers to us, and another option is to use some kind of virtual machines. So like, for example, I currently use VMware, you see it here. There is also Citrix I use, so I use Amazon Workspace. So it basically means that from your computer you can access another computer. Yeah, basically the system on another computer. And then you have everything there. So that would technically be the same like if you use another computer. So, and in all these cases, there is single sign-on, so you don't have the access to the passwords, but 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 you already are in all the necessary networks or systems, right? So, do you have any questions? Maybe.
Hi.
Okay, maybe let's. So if it's fine for you, maybe we can have 10 minutes break now, if it's
Yes.
fine, yeah, and then we can continue with the questions. Okay, so then let's make 10 minutes break now, and then we continue with the questions. Yeah, you can also prepare the questions, and then we continue with them. So it's then 10 minutes. Okay. we can continue. So so Irena, your question.
Yeah, question. I have two questions. First question will be related. I just checked that this customer has active web page, so I'm interested. Are you really keeping those data to yourself, or is there some kind of virtual cloud or hosting or public hosting where it actually all?
You mean
Yeah,
this one? You mean this one?
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so yeah, as I
Or
said,
it was just
yeah, yeah, as I said, we normally have several systems. We have some kind of development
mm-hmm.
system, we have a testing system, and or we may have also development system and production system. So this is development system. So I created it on my
Mm-hmm.
computer. So I filled it with some testing data. I basically needed to do some tests. So these are the manual random data I entered
They are
to.
not real customers. Yeah.
No. I mean,
Ah, okay,
they
okay.
did. This is the development. Yeah, this is the so yeah.
Yeah, okay.
If you see some of these names, I just randomly picked them from the
Mm-hmm.
internet and created the customers there. So these are not real data, of course. No.
And second thing I wanted to ask, I'm looking to that import button, and can you show how it's possible to so that we don't need to enter data manually,
Yeah.
for example, but can we just upload it like from
Yes.
CSV file or something like that? Yeah.
Yes, it's a good question. Yeah. So in some databases and some tools, you may already update from a CSV file or similar. Can't we? Yeah, we can update it from here, but so from SQL, I usually use SQL format, so it means that you can pick the thing. Yeah, basically, again, so in this case, maybe, yeah, let's move to the SQL language itself more, and the thing is that all the actions we do here, as I said, as I originally said, all the actions are based on SQL queries. So it means that every change we do on the database or on the data, these all changes, or we create a new database, or we delete the database, or we create a new table, or we add a new field to the table. All these actions are done in SQL. So in theory, we can use SQL and write anything what we need to do with the database. Again, there can be some restrictions on the access. Yeah, so you don't worry the about the data accessing, because not any user can access every table. Not any user can access any data, so it is restricted on the privileges. This is the first thing. But yeah, so everything can be written in SQL. So like create something. Yeah, I can create some database, for example. I can create a table. I think yeah, I can create a table. So everything, all the actions can be done using SQL. And yeah, so the easiest thing what we can do is, for example, we can export. First of all, we can export. Let's say I have some kind of database, and maybe let's use custom export. Yeah, so I can select what do I want to export. I want to export the structure and the data. So let's maybe start with easiest thing I can. Yeah, I think I can. So I can select some parameters. Maybe let's go deep there now, but yes, so press go, and it will export me the basically yeah, it will export me my database in SQL. So what does it mean? It means that it will simply export all the SQL statements which are needed to create this database with all the tables it has there. So what that means that I can go to, let's say, some kind of yeah, maybe on the top. Then I mean, or just on the top of my server. Then I can write. I can, let's say, copy paste this SQL, and then I can execute this SQL. So we have some kind of set mode, set transaction. It's not, yeah, set transaction. Yeah, it's maybe not really significant for us. And then yeah, we can the statement create database if not exist. So if the database does not exist, it will create this database. So for example, let's say we have something like this database. We want to create the database.net2_1. Here's some default settings, and then yeah. So use means that every time we execute the query, we don't need to provide the name of the database, because normally when we want to access any table, we need to provide also the name of the database. So this is the same as we have in C# when we use namespace. So when we use the namespace, so we don't need to access the, like if we don't use MySQL connector, I need to write MySQL connector. So I need to write the, let's say, the full statements. Yeah, MySQL connector. In this case, yeah, so I need the full namespace, then access the classes from here. Yeah, so the same as in SQL, you can type use. Okay, yeah, you can type. Go down. Sorry, where was this? Oops, on top. Okay, maybe I can do it this way. So yeah, you need to select. You need to press write use database, and then it will execute all the statements under the database you provide here. Yeah, and this means I don't need to write the name of the database here. And the same approach as in C#. So yeah, and when I have all these statements, so maybe you can quickly take a look on them. So this will use .NET Free, let's say namespace, yeah, database under the under it. So in all the statements we have here, so drop table, create means create the table. Yeah, it creates the table, creates the fields, the type of the fields, the length of the fields. So maybe engine, yeah, so character set, it's also important because there may be some other character sets used, which yeah, so usually it's really important for Latvians that we have, or not Latvians, but I mean for Latvian websites, for Latvian data, that we have our Latvian characters, and so usually be careful when you work with them, because you may be in the area where there's different character set used, which does not accept Latvian characters, so need to be careful here. Yeah, that's why it's better to provide the character set, and usually we use UTF-8. Yeah, so that's, I guess, the safest option for us. Yeah, so we can create a new table, then we can create the foreign key. I guess it's also primary key. Yeah, we can add here, get primary key here, also the foreign key. Yeah, so also the foreign key, it can also be added from SQL. So you can write SQL query to do all these things. You can press on the buttons there. So, and when I run this SQL query, then I get the error. Then I get the error, and why do I get this error? This is, oh yeah, of course, my mistake. Not .NET 3, but .NET 2.1. My fault, sorry. This was my fault, and now it executes all the queries. Yeah, and basically in this case, again, this is why SQL is called scripting. It's called procedure language, because we have the procedures. So it means that we can execute these procedures independently. So I can simply take one of these procedures and execute it without executing the previous procedures. Of course, there can be some logical issues, like let's say I want to add the constraint to the table, which does not exist. Of course, this will make this will trigger the issue, but I mean, there is no such thing. there's no such thing like compilation. I mean, there is such thing like compilation, but I mean, yeah, we can say that such queries will be compiled. But of course, then we cannot work with. I mean, there may be the errors during the execution, but each statement is executed can be executed separately. Okay, the question from Owen: where can we find these character sets? Good point. Guess you can. Guess you can. They are defined somewhere in some file here. I'm not really sure, but they are. I guess they are defined somewhere in such file. Like the easiest would be that you. Yeah. So like that's why it's sometimes it's easier to write these things manually. So for example, yeah, I will also explain one more thing, but so I mean the first what you can quickly check is when you create so when you create a database. So here you have these character sets. So you can, I guess the easiest way would be that you check them here, and this is the first thing. Second thing is you can try to find where they are stored on your computer, because in theory I can access, I guess I can access this 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 server without the internet. I think it's possible. Yeah, I think it is possible. I can access this server without the internet connection to the internet. Yeah, this is one thing. So yeah, this means that everything you see here is stored somewhere on your computer. So you can also search for, not on your computer, but somewhere in this folder, under MySQL. I guess, I mean not I guess, but I cannot really point to you where where exactly it is, but it's somewhere here under these files. And so as another option, you can take a look on the properties here, and you can take a look on the MySQL version, which should also be stored somewhere here. Okay, so type Mario database. I guess you can take a look on the server version, and then you can type MySQL, MySQL character sets. So you can take, I guess you can search for the character sets, and we can take a look. List, I guess. Yeah, take a look on the list. So yes, then you can take the link, and okay, I'm not sure if this is the correct link, but you can search for them somewhere. Yeah, you can see the list here, and then you can select the one you needed. Yeah, so you can take a look on some lists, and then select the character set. There may be differences between different MySQL versions, but I think that for the character sets, it's not a big deal. So normally the character sets should work, but please be careful that in some versions, in some database versions, character sets can be different. Not different, but some character sets may not be available. But in most, you should have such all these character sets. So yeah, going back to your question, Irene. So this is how we can export. And how we can import the SQL. I mean, we can import everything from one SQL data into another. Also, it is possible that we import directly from here, but again, yeah, To be honest, I have never tried this, but I think yeah. So you can also try to import from CSV file directly here. So this can also be the option. But on practice, it's not every time possible that you have. First of all, you have this MySQL workbench, PHP admin workbench, yeah, because in this case, since this is located on our computer, it is easy for us to access it, to make any changes there. But remember what I said you half an hour ago. On practice, it's not possible that we have such access to the database every time. So in practice, we as the users, we as the users or the programmers, we cannot access the database tables directly. I mean, we cannot simply just have such PHP admin, open all the data, and do whatever we want here. Of course, in practice, it should not be possible. So there can be separate programs, the programs which allow us to connect to the corresponding database and fill in all these data. Yeah, so that's why we may need some programs which do it. Yeah, but of course, like you imagine that you have the possibility, you can also import the data from the files here. Yeah, but yeah, we may need the programs. Right. So this was about this. But again, as I just said, the easiest way would be that you export the SQL queries and import them in the way that you execute SQL. Yeah, SQL queries. Okay. So, any other questions? Or maybe something is still not clear. Okay. So then I hope it's clear. Yeah. Also, then let's go back to SQL. What are the statements we have? And maybe let's go to our database just not mess other data. Yeah, so basically we have SQL. Again, as I just said, using SQL we can do any actions on the database and on server in general. But again, because of the privileges, we may have some different access. I'm not sure why my user does not have. I tried everything, but I guess something is messed on my computer. And yeah, one more thing, if you're interested, usually the servers are written in on Linux, sorry, not on Linux, on Unix-based system. So if you're not familiar, usually we may have some, not usually, but we have Windows operating system, and we have Unix-based systems. I mean, normally I just do we have any proper system which is not Windows or Unix-based system? I cannot really imagine. Do we have such? So just non-Unix-based system operating systems. So what do we have? We have so these are Unix-based. Yeah, FreeBSD is Unix-based system, but non-Unix system based. Okay, the most obvious one is Windows, but do we have something else? Yeah, maybe classic macros. Yeah, I think yeah, we don't have anything apart from Windows. I mean, something popular apart from Windows, which is not Unix-based system. So yeah, then usually we can say we have Unix-based systems and Windows. There is maybe something else, but so from the most popular, it's Windows and nothing more. Yeah, from non-Unix based system. Yeah, so what the Unix system, Unix operating systems, so Unix, this is, I would say, this is Unix itself, yeah, it's the operating, it's a family of operating systems. So the family gets some kind of pattern, yeah, of the operating systems with the core, which based on which the operating systems are created. And yeah, so why I'm saying this now, because most at least, yeah, from my experience, I guess most of the servers are written, so they are stored on not Linux but Unix. So it can be, I guess, rarely for the servers it is Linux. I think there are other operating systems, but they are all based on they are all on Unix. And for Unix, there is, I would say, yeah, there is quite, on one thing, there's quite primitive. On the other, on the other side, on the other hand, it is quite effective way of managing data privileges. Yes, so like who and how, not usually who can, who and how can access the files. So the restrictions on the files can be in place. So it means that one particular group of users or one particular user can or cannot access some kind of files or some kind of data, cannot write in some kind of data, cannot change, cannot create. So all such restrictions can be, and they are usually applied on the files on the servers. And yes, by the way, Macintosh, Mac OS is also the Unix-based operating system. It is quite modified. It's not maybe quite classic Unix-based system, but it is still Unix-based operating system. So yeah, just in case you're interested and you have Macintosh, you can do some interesting Unix things there. So yeah, but on the other hand, you can, if you want to try to work, try Unix systems yourself, you can also create some virtual machines, virtualizations, I guess they're called, and try Linux or some other Unix system yourself. And so it's for free. Everyone can access, can create and do it. So if you want, it's for free. You can try it. You can try any Unix system except not Microsoft, Macintosh, except macOS. Because macOS is strictly for Apple. They have their strict rules, strict access. So that's maybe something different. But something like Linux, you can create. So you can create a virtual machine where you can use it. So yeah, let's go back to our SQL, MySQL database. So yeah, here we can execute, not only here, but here and let's start from here. We can execute the queries. The queries, so which, I mean, on the technical setup, as I just said, we can have such queries to create the tables, to change them, to add new fields, or to some similar things. So this is done on the setup side. After the setup, we usually work with the data, right? And then, so the usual statements we have can be select statement. So select everything from, let's say, cities. So the easiest statement, we have no cities, right? Okay, maybe let's select everything from countries, because countries, yeah, if you want, you can also add where one. It means that where condition is fulfilled. But yeah, the easiest way would be this. Yeah, so it selects everything from countries table. So the SQL statements, they have their keywords. Yeah, so like select from star and some other keywords, which based on which you can build the query, and they should follow the sequence. And basically, SQL, I would say, is most yeah, I mean, from my understanding, it's one of the most direct languages. Yeah, where you can simply say, please do this, and it will do it for you. Yeah, so here say select everything from countries. Yeah, so what does it do? It selects you everything from countries table. Yeah, so here you see the quotation marks. They are the escape characters, so we can ignore them. And also where one means so it also means nothing. It means just where everything. So yeah. So instead of selecting everything, I can also specify what do I want to select. So I say select me the ID from countries, so it will select me all the IDs from this table. Yeah, only ID field. Yeah, nothing more. I can also say select me name. So then it selects the name for me. Yeah. So I can also ask it to select several fields, ID name. And yeah, it will then select two fields. Yes, so we can use commas. So let's then try to. So this is select statement. Select statements can be even more complicated, and we will not. We'll look at them a little bit later. For now, let's move to the next one, which is insert. So next one for is insert, which can insert the data. Yes, so and by the way, in PHP Madden, we have such patterns we can use to make the insert easier for us. So basically, yeah, what does it do? It says insert into cities. We provide the list of the fields we want to insert, and then we can provide the values. And so again, I can read that in the way that I have insert into, please insert into table cities, insert these fields, where values. So here I can provide the values. Since ID is not mandatory, I cannot, yeah, I mean, it's not mandatory, I can skip this. It will be automatically incremented then. And then I say, so the city name would be just any city. Let's say that would be London. And the country would be, yeah, so here, the country, I need to provide the country from that table. So since we have the foreign key, let's maybe have a look what kind of foreign key we have. Foreign keys we have here. Okay, maybe that won't be London. I will use be for Latvia and Germany. So just to make it easier, let's put the right for Latvia. Then and then it would be not London, but that would be we apply, for example. And what's here is also Latin characters here. And so the ID of the country is 1. Sorry, since this is Latvia. So and then it will execute, and now we have our first entry in this table. Yeah. So the syntax is simple. Yeah, insert the fields we want to insert and the values. In addition, we can also execute update. Yeah. So we can execute update, and in this case it will update the value. So I say update table cities, set ID, we want update ID. So in this case, yeah, in this case we have set and where. So set means what values we want to set. So I want to set the city, let's say to, so from whereby let's say I want to set it to Jelgava, and where ID equals 1. Yeah, so yeah, one more thing. In SQL, please note that we don't have comparison mark as we have in C# or other languages. So this will not work. Yeah, so this will be a syntax error. Here we have equal sign. Yeah, so in SQL, equals means comparison always, right? So yeah, so here it is straightforward. And yeah, so now we can execute, and it should change the name of the city from Liepaja to Jelgava. And so here we have where condition. So where condition means that this restricts the search. Yes, so in this case I say set where condition is true. And also in SQL, remember that we write conditions also same way as we do it in C#. We have logical operations, and logical operations we can produce as true or false. So I can say ID equals 2 and something else here. So and city equals something. Yeah, so just some kind of logic. And I can also, instead of and, I can use or. Yeah, so we have these logical operations here, and they will work the same way as or and work in C#. Yeah, okay. So now update is executed. Yeah, so it was executed before, and the city is updated. So yeah, basically these are three main operations. We can also execute delete. So delete will be quite simple. Delete from table where condition is true. And so using where we can specify the condition, how the SQL will search for our for the entries we want to delete. Yeah. So this would be this way. And yeah, next thing is that we can write some complex queries. So let's say we want to select from two tables. So what do we need to do? We need to join the tables. So, and in this case, I will write select. I can write them this way: cities. Let's say cities. No, yeah, I'll select. Yeah, that would be correct. I'll select. Let's say I want to select the text of the city and text of the country. I want to select the ID of the country. I want to select the text of the country. So in this particular case, I will say that we select the city and we select the country. Or sorry, not from the cities, but that will be from the countries. And that will be a country name. Then I specify from. So at first I want to select from cities, since this would be the main table. And then I use inner join. Yeah, I can use inner join. And I specify the table I want to join, so the table would be the countries. And then I specify on. Yeah, so for all the joining, you need to have on condition. On means you specify the joining condition. It should be one condition, and it should be one field. I mean, one field from each table. And my condition would be that we join by these cities, and so the country ID, and it should match the ID of the countries. Yeah. And yeah, if I want, I can also specify where condition. I can skip specifying where condition. So I execute the statement, and yeah, you see I have the result that I have both texts. Yeah, I have name of the city and the name of the country. So maybe I can copy paste this SQL statement again and maybe make some modifications. I can also, yes, I can also write how do I want to type city. So let's say I can also type it in Latvian, let it be maybe Pilsēta. So just for you to show that we can have, yeah, we can define our own names on the SQL side. Yeah, so that the country and as name would be, so yeah, maybe it's right one, and I can also write in English if you want. So that's just to show you, and yeah, we can use as condition, and then it will select in the way that these fields are displayed this way. And one more thing, I guess you will find you will usually find is that the queries are written the following way. That there is, when you join the table, that you'll see that the table may be named as, let's say, something like A or B or B. Yeah. So usually there are such cases. So let's say from cities as, okay, maybe what would be as A, and then the countries would be B. So then on A country equals B city, and then I can select A city B country, city, so B name. Yeah. So then I execute. Yes. So yeah, I mean, I don't really like the syntax, but on lots of SQL statements, you see such syntax that when you join the tables, they are named as something. So in this case, I simply say that when I use this particular table in my this SQL query, then it will be named as A. Yeah, so cities, I can simply use A instead of cities here. So this is the purpose of using as. Yeah. So basically, maybe I don't really like to use as in the joining statements, but I mean, you may see such approach many times. Yeah, so just don't be afraid when you see it. So there is such syntax. Okay, do you have any questions with this? Yeah, so this is SQL. This is how it works. Yeah. So let's okay. So yeah. Here we have SQL, and using SQL we can make some actions on our database. Okay, maybe I will not go deep in the SQL syntax. In case you're interested, there are also different sources, like, so you can type anything you want, and Google will suggest like usually the first or second link will be the query you're looking for. Yeah, so it's quite easy to search for the necessary query in Google. And then let's have a small look on the program. Then I will maybe not write the program, but I will have a small look what we have here. So first of all, when we, like in C#, when we do some actions on the SQL, then at first we need to establish, you see here, we need to establish the connection. So this is obvious must-have thing. What we need to do, yeah. So first, before you make any actions with database, you need to connect it, right? So it makes sense. So yeah, then you put the connection details there, and yeah, so you need to provide a data source from where you need to connect the database name if needed. Yes, you can also skip the database. In that case, you need to access, like in this case, let's say if I don't provide database, then I need to provide the database name here. Yeah, so this way, remember, we can execute the statement use SQL in our SQL console, and then it will use .NET-2 as the namespace for all our queries. Yeah, the same as here. This is one thing we can specify, or we cannot specify. It's up to us. So this is the first thing. Second thing is the query, of course. To be able to write anything there, we obviously need to write the SQL query. And basically what happens here, yeah, I mean technically how it will work. I write some kind of query or action in my C# code. Then there's the query, SQL query, text query generated. This query is sent to my SQL connection, it is sent there, and then this query is executed on the SQL side. So C# is basically needed to prepare the query. Yeah, the first thing. Second thing is how do we write this query? How do we prepare this query? The thing is that, yeah, so you see here I used prepare statement. This is called prepare statement. And what does it mean? It means that we have the safe access to the fields. Yeah, because let's imagine that you concatenate. Yeah, because the obvious approach is to concatenate the parts of SQL query, but this may be the problem. And what is the problem which may be here? And it's also, yeah, so today we had a really good discussion about the security cases. And SQL, execution of SQL is also really important from security point of view. And yeah, so basically every time we access database, we execute SQL. Not every time, yeah, but yeah, every time when we access database directly, there is SQL query executed. And let's imagine that we allow the users to execute any query they want. Yeah, so let's say that you concatenate the strings, and usually it means that you concatenate some kind of user input. Yeah, because how usually it does work. There is, let's say, user please provide. You say to user please provide some kind of name user, or name surname, or username, or some kind of ID. Then based on this ID or username, there will be the selection query or some kind of other query executed in SQL. And let's say that the user, instead of providing the name, it will provide some kind of part of SQL query, because that's also possible. Like instead of providing the name here, it will provide the closing of SQL query, and or like here instead of external ID, it will provide the closing of SQL query, then it will provide some kind of another query. Yeah, so like let's say that we have the concatenation here. Yeah, so let's say that instead of using prepare statements, we do the concatenation. So let's say that the user, so we have some kind of user input. So maybe just to make it clear for you, let's say some kind of user input. So that will be the string. And let's say that the user inputs something like this. So it closes the current SQL statement and executes another statement. So let's say that would be insert, yeah, something else. Yeah, so just imagine any insert into some kind of another table. And so just again, not really important, but I guess you understand that it can be some kind of another SQL query. And if the current query is concatenated with the user input, so what will happen? Yeah, you see that basically instead of one query, it will execute multiple queries. And of course, it's not safe. Of course, it may trigger some really serious issues. And we need to escape such situation. Yeah, so to not allow users to write the queries instead of the data they need to provide. So that's why we use these so-called prepare statements. So in this case, instead of directly concatenated the strings, I simply use the parameters, and these particular parameters will be provided by the users, and then the query will be checked, and it will not allow the users to just manually writing the SQL queries. Yeah, so and the syntax is done in the way that I create my SQL parameter. So this will be the object. The object will link the name in the query with to the object itself. Yeah, so I say here I have the name. It will be linked to this name to the value provided here. Yeah, so also then the capital, it will be linked to this one, and so on and so on. So I have these objects. So this is the first thing. Second thing is that one moment. Yes, I did it wrong here. External ID. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. For some reason, I guess. Yeah, I did it wrong here. I think I can do it this way. This would be the same. Yeah. So I guess I did not need to access it this way, but it's maybe not really important in this case. Yeah. So the point is that using these objects, we can assign the value. So this is safer option, that the value will be directly assigned to the attribute, and there will be no option for the users to write some kind of SQL queries. And so the syntax is quite simple. We create the parameter as the object. We fill this parameter separately. Yeah, and then we add this parameter to the command. Yeah, so we create the command object. So this will be actually the object which will generate the SQL query, which then to be executed on the database level. And yeah, then the command is prepared and the query to be executed. Okay? So then connection to be closed at the end. So yeah, so this would be the syntax to execute some kind of insertion or update query. Do you have the questions on this? Okay, good. And then let's say we want to read the data. So to read the data, again, maybe I will not show all these things because we have limited time. So to get the data, we can execute the command, and then we can say execute execute reader. So this will execute as the read, and then it gets my SQL reader. So in case you have select statement, so then you have SQL reader, this is SQL data reader. Right, so you get the reader, and then from the reader you can access the data selected from the database. So you have using the query, yes, so you can access next result. So this will return you the collection. So there can be several rows. Yeah, retrieve row 1, row 2, and to access next row you need to execute the command next result. Yeah, and so this will access the next row. And then once you are on the current row, you can get the data. So that would be get the corresponding data. So if you have the W, then you can use get double and provide the you can provide the sequential position of the column, or you want to get the value from, or you can also provide the name of the column using the string. Like let's say I want to get the say value or something like that. So that will be the name of the column selected from the database using the query. Yeah, so these are the actions what can be executed. I mean, I will not show them here because of the time limit, just for you to understand. Okay. So do you have? But if you have any questions, please ask. Yeah, do you have any questions about these SQL commands? Yeah, so we can this way we can work with the database. Okay, so again, those who work with me on the previous course, they should already have this presentation. I will share once again with you. Also, I'll show previous presentation about the threads. Yeah, any questions? No? Just no. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So then, yeah, I'll share this presentation also with you. You can take a look on some comments. And as always, in case you have any questions, please contact me. Okay, so then I think we can close the topic about the SQL. Let's quickly check one thing. Okay, so and then let's then start our last topic, and it is about model view control. So this is the model view control is the topic about actually I can already say we are talking about the web applications, and the concept of model view control is quite so basically what does it mean, model view control? So it simply stands it stands from the name. We have the model, we have the views, and model or multiple models we can have, and we can have control. So let's see maybe in general what's about these three components. So the model or the models, it means that there is some kind of definition of the model usage we have of the usually when we talk about model view controllers, we talk about some kind of web applications or web frameworks. And so model first. First we have the model. Model itself, it defines the application in general. Second, we have the view, or we can maybe better say the views, which means that So these are the views what are seen by user. That's some kind of views, some kind of, yeah, usually just open any website and you see some kind of different views there. And you have the controllers. So yeah, views are usually written in some kind of special syntax. And then there is the controller which controls these views. So that what does it mean? It means that it may store some kind of data from there, from the views. It may manage the views. It can bufferize some kind of data. Bufferize means that we read. Yeah, so let's say when we load the program or the website or the application, we fetch some kind of data from we fetch the data from the database, and then we keep this data. Yeah, we call it the buffer. Yeah, the buffer place. Yeah, buffer. It's just the place in between the database and the actual application where the data can be stored. Yeah, because the access to the database it's quite costly on practice. It means that it's not like you click every time somewhere on your web page and then the access to the database happens. That will be a disaster because again, as you said, the access to the database it's on practice it's quite heavy. So if you have the option not to access to the database, you should always use this option, just from the performance point of view. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have other option but to use the database, you of course need to do it. But if you have the option not to use the data, not to access the database, then it will be the better option. I mean, it's not like it's prohibited to use the database, and no, you should always use the database. It's the place where we get the data from and where we store the data. But if you have like the option to take the data somewhere locally or to access the database, then of course you should use the local data because it's stored somewhere nearby you and you can easily access it. So it's like the same if you have the so just imagine you have you read the books and you go to the library. So you don't usually go to the library like you read maybe some, let's say 10, you want to read 10 books, 10 exact books, and it's not like if you want to read them, you go to the library, you take one book, you go back, you place the book on place this book, or you read this book, you place the book home, or you read this book, then you go back to the library, you take another book, then you read it, then you go back, you take another book, and so on and so on. So it's not the most efficient approach. The most efficient approach would be that you take these 10 books, let's say 10 books you want to read at once, and simply take them, read them all, and return them back. And so you don't. Same is about the database. Like if you have the option to read the data once and access, so you read it and you store it somewhere nearby you. Like let's say if this is the program, you can read the data in your collection somewhere and store it. It's kind of variable, and then it's easier to access this variable, this collection, not the database, just because of the performance point of view. Yeah, and then if you have such option to do it. So this is from the performance point of view. And also using the controllers, there is such option to bufferize data some way to make the access to it easier. Okay, So what is model view controller? It's architectural pattern used to isolate domain logic from the user interface. So model itself, it's data retrieval and storing. And then we have that's the presentation of data, how the user sees it, and the controller is the one which processing the input, which processing basically everything what the user does. So maybe also let's take a look on the comments. Yeah, so it stands for model. We have view controller. That's actually, yeah, okay. So just everything what is written here. So yeah, and basically here you can see how the interaction itself looks like. So we start with of course, on the top there is the user who does all the actions. Yeah, so any action. Then there is the use. Then the input is handled by controller. Yeah, controller takes this input. It also has some additional data maybe. Then it does some manipulation. Then model maps, yeah, you can say it maps the controller and the view. So it says this particular controller, or maybe controller, sends the information, some kind of information to the model. Model then sends it to the view, and so the information is processed. Then the view is returned back to user. User sees the view, and user can proceed with them further actions. And then basically this is such pattern, yeah. So yeah, model manages behavioral data application domain. It responds to requests for information about its state and response. Yeah. So for example, yeah, maybe such just easy small example. So if I go to the inspect element, I guess we can do this. I mean, this is maybe not really about model view control, but the case of the requests in general. So let me go to the network. Okay, there's nothing here. Okay, that's good. So let's say I press on the browse. So then you see there is the request sent. Yeah, so there's the request which simply asks. In this case, I'm not really sure if we can call it as the controller, but it's some kind of logic which then sends the request. So here's the request sent by the controller. No, sorry, sent by the view, by the user. So user does the action, then the request is sent. So here's the information about the request sent. So then this request is handled, and then this request returns the information to the user after that. Yeah. So this is the way in general how it can be done. Yeah. So user sends the information, it is handled by controller, and then a new view is returned. So yeah, then what's the goal of such pattern in general? So the goal is by decoupling models and view to reduce the complexity in architectural design. Yeah, so basically using such pattern we can make so decoupling means that we make it more flexible for the framework we're working with, for our program, for our code to manage all these all the components of our program. Yeah, so since we have, I'd say the base on the top of the program, it is the controller. It is the controller which makes all the main steps for our basically for our program to execute. Yeah, so all the main steps to be done by are done by the controller. All right, and basically it makes it more flexible by controlling all these components. So first of all, we look on the model. So this is business domain element that the software is built around. So it defines all the main mappings, all the main structures, what and where should be used. And yeah, which controller, which view is used by which controller, yeah, which views or which controllers, which elements are interacting with each other. These all are defined by the model. Yeah, so basically the software is built around what? Yeah, it is based on real world items like person, product. So, and yeah, that data is usually permanent and stored outside the application. So, for example, it's database. Yeah. Yeah. This also enforces all the business rules, like the domain logic that apply to the data. So, like for example, person with green badge should be treated as an employee. Yeah, so we have such mapping between the. Yeah, so in this case, we have the mapping between the person and the employee. So it can also be done. It can be done using the model. What should be mapped where? So yeah, also for example, total price yeah, is greater than 50. Then shipping price is 0. So that such model information can help us, not us, but the program to determine all the necessary mapping here. Here, this also guarantees that nothing else in the application can make data invalid. Yeah, so we have also some kind of protection here. So it acts as both data gatekeeper and date store. And yeah, also any data access technology can be used. So you can use like some entity framework also, internet or other. So then the next thing is the view itself. So the view, as it stands from the name, this is the visual representation of the model. Yeah, so this is basically what the users see as the output. So what the user sees at the end. Yeah, of course, with some given context, and yeah, so the data is fetched from the controller. So controller, as it stands from the name controller, it applies the control on the view. So it is responsible for the generating all the necessary details there to managing the main logic. So the main logic, like when we say it's the technical logic, it should be done on the controller side. And at the end, so once the controller is executed, at the end it returns the results, some kind of results, and the results can be, yeah, they are generated in some markup language. So markup means it means that it's something what it can be read by the, maybe not only the website, but some kind of website generator, maybe as well. Excuse me. And yeah, then the user can see the actual output based on its meeting I have. This was old meeting. Small meeting. Okay, so yeah, then it renders. Yes, so here we have the name rendering, and I would say this may be the key point here because at the end we have the HTML page. So if you go to the inspect element, we see that we have the HTML code here. So this is called HTML, and so I'm not sure if you are familiar with HTML, but all the web pages, they are at the end of the day, they are all generated in HTML. So it is, the style of HTML is quite similar to XML. So it has the tags. Usually it has the opening and closing tags. Sometimes it may not have closing tag and it won't be the issue. Yeah, so for example, I can make some editing here, and yes, I can also enter new tag here. No, not attribute. Oh, hold on, no, I can the attributes. No, the attribute, sorry. Okay, that's HTML. Okay, so sorry, I could edit. Okay, so I can say I start italic tag. Okay. Then it means that all the data, okay, so it's given inputs, so maybe not really interesting, and maybe let's navigate to Yago, for example, and I can put, say that's HTML, I can put, I can make Yago in italic, for example. So I have opening tag, I have closing tag, and so now you see that the name now is in italic. So basically, everything we have here, it is generated, it is rendered from somewhere, and also the data is rendered from somewhere. Basically, like in this case, how it goes, there is the, so since this is PHP logic, so there is the PHP program which is executed. There's PHP program executed. PHP can access the file, so it reads the file, it takes data from the file, then there is so then PHP renders the view, and at the end we see this rendered HTML view with all the data fetched by PHP program, PHP logic. Yeah, so this is the way, and yeah, I mean, as I just said, the view is rendered. Yes, so key point is that we render the view. The view is then visible by users, and they can interact with this view. So the view is responsible for generating a user interface based on data should not contain business logic. Yeah, so it means that so business logic means the backend logic. So backend logic is because when we say view, it means that it is something what is directly providing the information to the user. And so when we have some kind of data, then this data should be calculated, generated, or simply fetched on the backend level. And when we say when we work with the views are not written in the backend. So yeah, I mean they can be written in the backend, but we cannot consider the views as the backend. Well, 1 moment. Okay, so I'm still here. Just double check. Okay, so the stream is ongoing. My microphone is on, so should be fine. Okay, so good. So this is the thing. You may present the user with various way of inputting data, but those are just visual input elements. The view itself never handles incoming data. Yeah, also about the passwords. Yes, about the passwords. View can, it can. I mean, we can provide the input on the view, but the data, also the passwords or some kind of input data, it is all handled on the backend, not on the view side. So on the view, we should only take care about generating the content. And the next and the key part here is it is the controller. So this is the coordinator that provides the link between the view and the model. Yeah, so this is where we write, let's say, the main logic which builds us the main information for the view. We need for the view. And basically, so the question for you maybe, what technically is the controller? Yeah, we say that controller is it is usually some kind of class, which which stores the logic which we can execute. So just simply, and the view is basically the place where we render it. But okay, that's maybe what we'll talk next. But the controller itself, it executes an incoming request. So from the view, user does some kind of actions, and then these actions are then processed by controller and rendered by controller. Okay, and it is the controller itself is responsible for processing input data, as I just said, deciding what kind of actions should be done, so what kind of action should be performed, rendering the view, so the view is rendered from there, telling the model to save the data, so user provides some kind of input, then the data should also be saved, if needed, can be saved in the model, the database, or somewhere else. And also redirecting to another page. So again, the role of the controller controlling the process is also applied here, can need to be applied here. And then we have basically model view controller in ASP.NET Core. So this is the ASP.NET Core is a cross-platform, high-performance, open-source framework to build the applications. And so on the so we have sub.NET Core. It has model view controller architecture, Razor pages, some popular JavaScript frameworks. JavaScript frameworks are quite popular nowadays. Also inbuilt dependency injection support, improved collaboration across platform application. And basically, the design of model view controller pattern is still designed in the way as